Well, welcome everyone to another Fired Up Friday. I'm so glad to have my friend Candidly Tiff here to chop it up because Lord knows there have been a lot of things going on. We've had a few elections since last we met. So I want to get the housekeeping out of the way first. Of course, you can find me here on Substack, on YouTube, under Advocacy Arena. Um, like and subscribe, follow it. Tiff can be found on multiple platforms, the TikToks, the Instagram, all of
TikTok doesn't
those.
like me. TikTok does not like me these days, so I have not been posting there. But you could definitely find me on Twitter, of course, X, Instagram, where I've been posting a lot as well, and also on Threads. So though I've kind of like got down a little bit in these platforms because it's too many. It's too many to keep up, and of course YouTube, where this goes on there every 2 weeks. That's pretty much all I post on there is our shows.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm glad you're streaming us on X, and I'll open up the chat and see, and encourage you guys to give us hearts, and don't be afraid to chop it up in the chat and ask questions if you want. But we're only going to be here for a short time today. Both Tiff and I have events that we have to get to, but we're going to give it a good 40-minute conversation here, important topics around these recent elections. And it's a lot going on. And I think, we just had our election yesterday, and people are like, what? Yesterday?
No,
Yes,
we
that's,
told you that it was on a Thursday, but
and I'll explain real quick.
yeah,
And
tell us why it was on a Thursday because I was very confused why it was on a Thursday.
most people are. It's weird, but it is written in our Tennessee state constitution that we can have elections on days other than Tuesday.
Mhm.
And so the way that they have set it up is that for gubernatorial races and a lot of county races on even years, we have them on Thursday.
Got it.
The presidential elections are always on Super Tuesday. We don't try to get weird for those, but it is weird. And sometimes it catches me off guard. This one did too, because I was like thinking it was going to be Tuesday with Michigan and all. And then I was like, crap, this is an even
Yeah,
year.
the only reason I knew was because I have a list of like all of the candidates that are like endorsed by like Bernie or Justice Dems or whatever. So I had Justin on that list. So I
Uh-huh.
knew that he was obviously going to have his race this week and it was going to be on Thursday. But I thought maybe, okay, maybe it's just the congressional races that are on this day, but it looked like it was every single thing, even
No,
the board, which it looks like you guys flipped a school board, which was awesome.
I am loving it. Since that was the first race, we'll get into Michigan, but I'm really pleased with a lot of the outcomes of our election last night. Certainly, Justin is one of them, but we'll get into that. Let's start with Michigan because I think that was a very contentious race, and the commentary online, in mainstream media, just everywhere was bonkers. And I really unplugged a lot because I was like, y'all are not going to work my nerves,
You were
but
very
clear.
smart to do that, unlike myself, who became like a target of this harassment for the last 7 days. So
You and Kenny, I was my heart still breaks to see some of what was said and done around him expressing his informed, you know, um, decision around the candidate. And I just like it just points to the fact that these conversations must be had, but people need to be freaking civil because you're not having a conversation when you're just name calling and
using
running people down just because you can.
yeah, no,
That's
it was
crazy.
nasty, and the thing about it for me is like, listen, we should all be able to agree to disagree. That's the way I do politics. There's many people that I follow who was supporting Haley Stevens, who I did not support per se. I didn't not support her. I just kind of like, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to say any. I'm going to talk about this race from a different perspective, from a outside spending perspective, from polling perspective, as the polls were coming, which we all know that they were, we can say, incorrect in terms of the statistical data that came out of it. He was supposed to win by like this amount, but didn't. So I was talking about it from that perspective. I never gave an endorsement. I never said that I supported him. I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm just gonna lay back and just kind of talk about this from a generic standpoint, which was fine, which is what most people should do. I don't live in Michigan. I don't know nothing about
exactly. The voices I was looking for were voices like Soul Sister,
exactly.
My co-host in Good Trouble Chat, because she lives there. And not only does she live there, she is someone who has always been very involved in politics and the nuances of it, not only politics, but the union, because they intersect.
Exactly.
And so I was, listening to her, and even she was very frustrated by all of this, because she initially was supporting Mallory McMorrow. And
like that was, so I didn't really comment on this until Mallory dropped out of the race, because then it became a two-person race. And before that, I was just kind of observing and just seeing, when I would see stuff about Mallory, I would, speak on it. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really take the race that serious in terms of where in the beginning, like, okay, well, there's 3 candidates. We'll see what happens. And Mallory was the one that I personally liked the best. She's a progressive. I like her communication style. I thought she was, doing a really good job. She was polling higher. At one point, she was leading in the polls. And then it was like, she just dropped. And I was like, holy crap, what's happening here? But I still kind of stayed out of it until the day, which was July 5th, which was after the Independence Day. I said, you know what, I remember was it July 5th? Yeah, I think so, because I had just come back from New Jersey that day, and I met with Mark and Gwen, and I was like, let's go to lunch. We went to lunch, and after we left lunch, I looked at my phone, and she had dropped out, and I was like, oh snap, this is about to get very real. And it did. Right, it got real nasty. It got real nasty,
real quick.
And I was like, oh boy. But I, in the process of doing that, like, we have to, we all have our opinions on different people and what we think of them. And I did not like the fact that Chuck Schumer and the SEC were kind of putting their hand on the scale. And I know they were back, obviously they would never endorse, but they were obviously backing Haley Stevens. And I thought, I don't like that. That's something that I have said before. I don't like when they do that, because I feel like it taints the race a little bit, because you also have, like I said, the anti-establishment kind of stuff that people like to throw in. You also have the money factor in it. And there was a lot of things happening. So I'm like, I'm not going to talk too much about this. But as it got nastier and nastier, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to start, chiming in, because I don't like the way that this is looking. So let me try to figure out a way to talk through this. But with the whole Kenny thing, what really pissed me off is, listen, we can all agree to disagree. Like I said, there's many people that I follow that were very hardcore Haley Stevens like supporters. I never once went in their comments and said, why are you doing this? How could you do this? You're lying on. Even when I saw things that I felt like were kind of like misleading or misinformation, I never jumped into their comments to say, don't do this. I think the only person that I did jump in their comments, and that was towards the end, was Shannon Watts, because she had said that he hadn't endorsed that he said he wasn't going to support Haley Stevens. And I had watched the after press conference of the debates. Mind you, I watched all the debates. I did write a Substack about the first debate, which I thought neither one of them. I mean, I didn't think either one did a really great job of giving their positions, but the second debate was much better, and I watched it. I didn't even comment on it. Mostly, I just kind of just watched it, and I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. But I felt like with the Kenny thing, that when you disagree and you attack the person personally and say, oh, he must be getting paid, now you're bringing up Chorus. First of all, Chorus, as I've pointed out many times to people, is nothing to do with candidates or even content creation towards a specific topic. It's a program to learn how to be a better content creator, which we should all want, because guess what? We are fighting MAGA and all of their platforms that they have.
The infrastructure of creators in MAGA really helps their distribution and their message. No matter how horrible it is,
Exactly.
it is essential. And until we have something similar to combat it, we need these kinds of agencies and programs and things that can help teach people and help, you know, create more of those. So
we realized in 2024 we were behind the 8 ball in terms of communication and how we're going to be able to get our messages out, and we're relying on too much of mainstream media. So now we needed to build a pipeline. I was never in Chorus, never had anything to do with Chorus. Obviously Zach and Kenny and a couple of people that I know were in Chorus, and guess what? They deserve to get that money. They were in a program. There's many cohorts out there where people can join and learn and get money, because guess what? It's time. Every Wednesday, I know they were on a call for 8 months trying to learn how to do things and get things better. And, you know, so I saw the improvement. Like if you watch Kenny's video,
that was the part that I saw. I saw the growth. I saw that they were taking the things that they were learning and incorporating them into their content, and you could see the growth and the difference. I think that's a good thing.
We wouldn't have our Wednesday show if it wasn't for Chorus, because Zach was able to produce that show on a week. We haven't had it in a while because we've all been traveling and it's summer and we got a lot of stuff going on. But even that was something that Zach was able to put together, and as well as some of his other shows, because of that money. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're downplaying that, it kind of defeats the purpose, because the purpose of it was to get information out to people, and many people like Kenny's content. So the fact that you try to weaponize that against him really, really pissed me off. And so that's kind of what made me like start seeing like, okay, well, maybe we are stuck in an echo chamber. Maybe people don't have the ability to have proper disagreements without being nasty with one another. And then I made a video on Sunday, and I said, listen, I get it. You know, people don't necessarily agree on everything. Like I said, I don't agree with everybody that I see. I see it, I scroll, I keep moving, and that's it. I'm not going to argue with everybody I see on my timeline. That's just not how life works. Even people that I don't necessarily agree with 50% of the time, I don't block them or curse them out or tell them you're stupid and you're wrong and how dare you and I'm disappointed and all. I don't know you like that. I don't know you personally to be disappointed by you. We are residing on an app together. But that's what really made me mad. And then it turned into a whole everybody's mad at me kind of thing. And I'm like, you know what? Y'all gonna be mad at me. Just be mad at me. I really don't care. But that brings us to Tuesday with the actual race, right? So I'm like, you know, let's see what happens. And sure enough, the polling was way off, right? The polling was way off. Me and Soul Sisters.
Now that's why I do not like it, and I don't pay any attention.
Up till 5:30 in the morning. I did not sleep that night. We were sitting up waiting, chatting in DMs and all on the timeline. We were, you know, it felt like November. What was it? 2024, or 2020. Like I was sitting there waiting for Michigan. Like we're sitting here waiting for Michigan once again to figure out who's gonna win. So while it was a stressful thing, it wouldn't have mattered either way to me who won, right? If Haley Stevens won, I was going to back her. If Abdul won, I was going to back him, and he ended up winning by this little bit amount. And I said that night, you know, whatever happens, happens. But for me, it's a difference between winning by 15% and winning by 0.05%. You know what I mean? There's a big difference. So I felt like, you know, this would actually be very humbling to him, because he was expected to win by so much. And I do see, like, in his messaging and the way that he's talking, that he has. I don't think there's anything wrong with humility, because at the end of the day, you want people's votes. Like, we're asking you for your votes. And yeah, you may have to turn down that little bit of, cockiness. You may have to watch who you have around you, because now you're going against the big dogs, which is the Republicans, who have massive money. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and they will have no problem putting you in a place where you are now having your heels to the back, and now you have to defend yourself. And they are going full out racist.
Exactly. Didn't lose or waste a beat coming out with the attack ads or whatever. So, for me, I just feel, like I said, what it showed, and the kind of reactions and things that I was seeing on timelines and conversations I was having in, different, audio spaces, was that it is really making the need for this conversation of the direction of the party more important. But we cannot waste a lot of time, because we have an election. Yeah, we have an election. Like, a conversation needs to be had, but we need to think about when we have it, and we need to not lose sight of the goal. Because again, me being a bit older or whatever, I just think that a lot of people have lost sight of, or never knew or understood, that, like, you kind of always have these kind of things going on in politics. And I don't think the Democratic Party has experienced this in a long time. So it's unsettling for a lot of people. But the Democratic Party made a shift in the 60s during, it started a little bit before that, but certainly in the 60s and stuff, because, the Dixiecrats were the ones that were kind of dominating. And because Black voters got more involved, and we got voting rights and things, it started to be the vehicle in which we could see progress being had. But before that, we saw that in the Republican Party.
Right.
And in order for them to make those changes and things, you had different groups that were working for advocating for different things, like the young students, SNCC. You had CORE, kind of young, not necessarily college students. And you had the Southern Leadership Conference with, religious leaders like MLK. And they all worked together, but it didn't mean that they always agreed.
Exactly.
But they kept their eye on the prize. And so I feel like we need to be reminded of what's at stake here, because it also happened in Germany during the rise of Hitler and Nazism. They too had these same kind of political factions, like on the left. I think that was the Communist Party and the Democratic Socialists. And they were fighting about their ideology and things between themselves. Meanwhile, Hitler is just conquering more and more of their rights that, basically make it impossible to even have those conversations or arguments, because they become mute. Because in an autocratic, government, neither one of you are going to be able to have your ideas expressed or, implemented. And I don't want us to repeat that kind of mistake here, because make no mistake about it, we are in the throes of fascism.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that totally. When I'm sitting back and not in, with this whole entire thing, I haven't been in my feelings. Like, I think that a lot of people are in their feelings. They have, they have concerns. Obviously, like you said, there's a rise of racism, anti-Blackness, anti-Semitism. There's a lot of factors that are going. There's different people that are involved that we haven't seen before, who are now playing in these things. They've said some really controversial things. I get it. I understand. But at the end of the day, when I look at the DSA and I look at what they are saying and what they're doing, do I like the organization that is the Democratic Socialists of America? No, I don't like the organization. But me, as a practical and a person who actually uses discernment, I look at who they're going against, what those candidates are doing, and how did we even get here, right? So when I look at a lot of these races, I look at the New York races, right? We have Claire Valdez and Antonio Reynoso. These are two people, they're both progressives, and they are battling it out. She won because she had a better ground game. That's how you win races, right? I'm not.
You just got to have that when you're.
I liked Antonio. I wanted him to win, but I give her props because they have a structural system where they have a lot of volunteers who go out and they help these people win. She won. Then I look at Espia and the Daria Liza Chavalet girl, and I'm like, okay, how did she win? She's kind of a little bit way to the fringe of who I would even want. She's going to be the first Afro-Latina. So I understand that. So from an identity perspective, I'm like, okay, this sounds pretty good.
Root for.
Then I listen and I'm like, this girl is cray. I'm like, she's crazy. But I'm also like, okay, how did she win? And then when I'm analyzing it, I'm like, well, until the day that Mamdani got in, guess what? Espaillat was not campaigning. He was barely campaigning. This woman was out there since November. And when I had posted something about it, this is 6 months later. And now you're trying to rush to win. She's been putting in the work. You messed up, bro. You messed up. And this is what is happening. Then in other races, you're seeing where there's multiple people running in races. And guess what? It's a math game. At that point, the math is the math. You gotta, whoever gets the most amount of votes is gonna win. Sometimes, and there's multiple moderates, and the progressive DSA person is the only progressive. And guess what? They won. So you have to analyze these races on an individual level. For me, the one that I was rooting for this week was Donovan McKinney, who is DSA. He's a Black man. He was trying to represent a majority Black district. That district had not had to me, proper representation for the last 2 cycles because they had a man named Sri Thander and his wig, who was the person who was in that seat. He bought that seat. He was DSA. He was basically kind of excommunicated out of DSA after October 7th because he was, obviously more aligned with, with the war and things that were going on. So they said, you got to go. But my issue with Sri is that he has horrible constituent services. So the DSA is actually smart. What they did was they found somebody who was in the local government, who is a state legislator, like I don't know what they call it in Michigan, but they're a legislator within the state party, and he knew people in the community. He was already somebody that was in the community, and they ran him against Tree, and they didn't have anyone else in the race. And I'm going to root for Donovan because that district deserved better. So whether the person was DSA or not, Donovan could have been a regular progressive. I didn't even realize he was DSA until maybe I kind of knew, but I didn't. It was like kind of iffy until last week. I don't care. Yeah. This is about representation in a district for people that look like us. And those people deserved better than what they had than a man who was not doing his job.
Exactly. And so Sister said, yes, he was a state representative.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely right. And for me, I've never liked the labels. I don't pay too much attention to them. I'm looking at the candidate and what their track record is. And it may not necessarily be in politics, but if they have some type of other work, profession that they have, that I feel like those skills can translate well, or they've, done, like some type of work in a charitable organization, those things can translate, but people just kind of coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, those are the people that kind of, I'm like, side, I but for me, even with Wes Moore, right? He wasn't somebody that had political experience before. He had never ran anything, but he was in the military.
Exactly.
And that's like you get a little check for that. He ran the largest anti-poverty group. Guess what? Check. Nonprofit. Check. I'm like, okay, so he knows about kind of the struggles. He understands. And then I heard his message, right? I'm like, okay, let me hear what this man is talking about. And what he was saying resonated with me. So a lot of these voters are listening to the message and they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe in this economy, yeah, maybe we do need to get corporations out of politics. Maybe we do need Medicare for all. Now, the whole Medicare for all thing is interesting, right? Because I think as we have seen over the last couple of months with the big, ugly, stupid bill that was passed, is that people lost their subsidies for the ACA. And for a lot of people, they cannot afford. A lot of people that I know don't even have insurance right now because they are not able to afford it. So when people are hearing Medicare for all, they're like, you know what? That actually sounds pretty damn good. How we achieve it is a whole different story because, we use slogans, but that is something that is resonating with them. We can't, you saying that we can't, we can't afford gas. We're in a war. I mean, we have a million things going on and we have a president who is making massive money off of our backs on tariffs and all kinds of crypto. Like, how are we even supporting people that even care about crypto at this point? I mean, I get it. But it's hard. But then when you think that, but then there was a really good a couple articles that I read. I posted a video about this too, about the use of labels, right? I mean, we've talked about this for over a year about labels and how they've gotten out of control. And it doesn't make you a moderate or it doesn't make you a progressive to vote for somebody who you just trust, right? Because that's what voting comes down to. Who do you trust to either win the general election? Who do you trust to fulfill the needs that you want or have within the job that this person is running for, whether it's governor or senator or congressperson? You have to trust the person. So I get it. Black voters are not easily trusting of candidates, especially a candidate that they do not know. So I read an article yesterday from Basil Smikle. I don't know if you've ever seen him on MSN.
Oh yeah.
He's a really good writer. I'm gonna send it to you after this. Okay. Really good article, and he was talking about Black voters and how they determine who they're going to pick in races. And it's like an inside outside strategy, right? We want to get in there, but you also want to also be on the outside and kind of have your ears to the streets and how people are thinking. And one of those things is that you have to build trust, and you cannot build trust with somebody if they don't know you. And that's what we saw with Mamdani, where people trusted Andrew Cuomo. It didn't mean that Mamdani was a bad candidate. It meant that people didn't know him because guess what? He spent most of his time trying to appeal to younger white voters. But what we saw after the primary is that Mamdani, he won on Tuesday, and on Saturday, he was right there with Al Sharpton. He was giving a speech. And
he understood
he locked in, right? You lock in and you're like, okay, well, now I got to win these folks. Maybe should have done it before, but here we are now. And what do we have to do to win? And he had a really smart person named Patrick Gaspard who helped him, who is the establishment, by the way, but he's also very progressive as well. He worked for Clinton, he worked for Obama, and he worked, I think, for Clinton, David Dinkins. So he knew New York, and he helped him. He helped him to be a better candidate, knew where the events were, where to show up. He flashed that little smile, and he ended up. If he did not win Black voters, he would not be mayor right now.
And that is the thing. People understand, like, when you're making that authentic connection. And I think when we talk about these labels and things, like here, of course, in Nashville and Tennessee, Justin associates with the DSA people. But if it wasn't for him bringing them in or them promoting him or whatever, I would never think that about him, because right. When the work that he does here, when I hear him speak, he speaks to the issues of his community. Exactly. He was doing this work and speaking to it before he ran for office. Exactly. And I just see him as someone who stays tuned in to his people, to his constituents, and really works hard to try to bring about change. And he has kind of, I feel like the best politicians are those that have kind of a passion project, if you will. And for Justin, I would say that is environmental injustice. And I think that is so important in this time. He's been doing that work for a really long time. But now with data centers being on the rise, it's even more important to have someone who is committed to this, work and advocacy around this and bringing attention to it. And he's been doing that for a long time. And I think people understand that. And I think it got real for people because we have now like 60 damn data centers here. Not all of them are active, but they are, like proposed.
Right.
So I think he resonates with people. And I also think, of course, him being younger, he kind of understands how to work and use the performative aspects and moments that you can get with social media and those other things. I mean, it's not just performative stuff for performative sake. Like it serves a purpose.
And I think with Justin too is like for him, he's a little bit different than some of the others because he already had built kind of like a rapport. I mean, we all saw him when it was like the Tennessee Three, and people that's how people got
national recognition.
Right. People got to know him because of that. But he did an interview with Hassan Piker. Am I going to be like, I'm not going to support him because he did an interview? I mean, come on, like we're grown adults. Like we cannot live in this purity place where we're like, oh no, he did this and I'm not going to support him because of that. Oh, Bernie endorsed him. I'm never going to support him. Come on, we got to stop that foolishness.
It's ridiculous because, like I said, this huge infrastructure that the right has that helps them distribute their message. They don't nitpick. I mean, sometimes they have fights about some of the extremists like Nick Fuentes or whatever. But they do have that kind of fight going on. And maybe we can talk about this the next time. But they really do have a very strong faction of white supremacists and neo-Nazis that they are actually starting to address and know that they have to deal with. So each party has some issues that they have to deal with. And I think that we just need to kind of stay focused on the mission right now, be aware of these issues and things, but we can't have these litmus tests of perfection. Like it's okay to have, kind of
standards. I think I have standards.
Standards, exactly.
Versus litmus tests, right? Like you said, we want candidates that have some relevant experience. I think that's a good way to when you're evaluating candidates, you say, okay, what kind of that's the first thing that people typically say. What kind of experience does this person have? Is it relevant to this job? And then we get to messaging. Then we get to then it's like, okay, who's going to endorse them? And then, for some people, for older people, yes, who endorsed them does kind of matter, right? Jim Clyburn endorsing Haley Stevens is a big deal to older Black folks, right? I mean, Gretchen Whitmer endorsing, that made people feel more comfortable with Haley Stevens and what she brought to the table. So endorsements do matter. Is it the end all be all? No. And my thing with a lot of folks is that, yes, I do think the party is going through a transformational period. We're on a transformational period. What this party looks like as we move forward, we will find out. But I do think that we also have to have a little bit of room for people to understand that not everyone is going to be, exactly how we want them to be. Maybe they will put a label on themselves. Maybe they will get backing by people like Bernie, who I do not like. But also I can discern and use my judgment to say, okay, well, this person actually sounds really freaking good. And they're talking the language that I want to hear. And I like this person. And I think that this person will be the best person for the job. And I think that's what Kenny did. I think that he looked at both of the candidates and he said, you know what, I think that Abdul, and he gave the receipts, he gave his wife, he didn't tell anybody, hey, you need to support this person. He said, I support him, I'm endorsing him, and that's it. And he gave the reasonings why. And from when Harry was running, I gave my reasoning why I supported him, because that's what we do. We are people who have receipts. We say why and how, and there's no room for, there shouldn't be any room for a misunderstanding. But apparently that was the case.
Yeah, and the thing of it is we don't all have to agree. I mean, how boring would it be? I think it is important for us to have disagreement, because that way you have more ideas in the pot and you can make the things better when everybody, is contributing things.
My friend Michael, he probably might watch this. He's on Instagram. He drives me crazy, and he knows he drives me crazy. He is a super progressive, and he challenges me. I told him, I said, you are one of the people that challenge me, because no one else really does. I mean, to be honest, on Twitter, people don't really challenge me in the same way. So we talk and, in direct message. We don't do it all the time. I mean, sometimes he does, and I always tell him off. But I need people to challenge my thinking and to try to think, okay, well, maybe you're right. Maybe we need to go about this a different way. Maybe they aren't right. Maybe I'm not right. Maybe we can come to a common ground, right? Because when we talk about Medicare for all, I'm like, okay, well, I work in the healthcare industry. It is not, Medicare for all doesn't solve problems. We still have racism within our system. How do we solve for that, right? How do we solve for the biases that happen? Because guess what? Black women are dying at a higher rate during pregnancy, and guess what? That would not change with Medicare for all. So how do we fix these disproportional things that are happening? So we can solve from an economic perspective, but how do we solve from a holistic perspective? That's how I think.
Exactly. And I love too, like you, I love to be challenged with, a different perspective. My daughter does that for me. And, a lot of the people, like I say, that I watch and listen to, sometimes I don't agree with them, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you that one. Or
right.
You're making me think.
Even sometimes with the right wing folks, right? I will see the clips and I'll be like, you know what? I don't agree with that person. But even Hunter Biden, he's a really good example. When he was talking to Nick Fuentes, right? Nick Fuentes was saying crazy stuff. Hunter Biden, he was chin checking him constantly about stuff. And you can, if you listen to Hunter, he is also a person that is like understands nuance. We have to get back to understanding nuance.
Because what did you say?
There are things that there are things that the progressive movement is saying that does make sense. We should not have a gazillion dollars being spent on these races. I mean, come on, let's be very real. This is and I saw it firsthand. I don't think that people should be getting bombarded with $99 million worth of ads and they're manipulating people and using Obama and his wife to do so. Yeah, that's bullshit. So there are things that as we are going through that we are going to have legit conversations about. But if you just shut the conversation down from the very beginning and say, no, I'm not going to be open-minded, I'm not going to listen, then that's also problematic too. And that's
we just stay stuck in the same place, each kind of in our own corners or whatever. And at the end of the day, we must come together to move the ball forward down the field. It's probably not going to be perfect and pretty all the time, but we got to keep
messy.
Yeah, it's the sausage making, that President Obama talked about, and it happens. Things just are not that smooth, and we can't expect perfection in our candidates, in our political movements, and moments, and those inflection points. Like, I think this moment is going to be so rich in historical perspective. I hope I'm around long enough to see some of those takes, but it's very uneasy experiencing those changes and that growth. It can be very painful, but
in real time we're witnessing like a change in the party. And I don't necessarily know. I think my issue with the DSA and some of their tactics is that you don't have to shit on the party to get to where you are trying to go. You don't have to shit on Black voters to get to where you want to go. How about we all work together and try to make things better, because we are going against, like you said, the fascists on the other side who are trying to build white power so that they can control the government for God knows how long and destroy us. Like, we are being destroyed right now.
and they don't make it a secret either. Like
Nope.
they published a whole manifesto, and now they have a new one. How they're coming after women
Oh
to
my
take
God.
women back to the 1800s or whatever. So wake up, white women, and we also have to continue talking about this issue that we have in our country with white supremacy. Like it crosses parties, and we
Not
just
going,
you
not
know.
going anywhere because that is what this country was built on, right? So
Mhm.
how do we work together to combat that? The more time we spend trying to be divided, the worse off things will be. Like you said, when you're talking about, during the times of Hitler and the rise of Hitler, we cannot allow that to happen. So we are going to have to start to work together. And that's not an easy thing, right? When somebody's talking negatively about a party you've built all this time and the establishment, Simone Sanders cracks me up every night because she did it. The night of the election. She's like, what is the establishment? I need to know what the establishment is.
Good
He's
question.
on a mission to figure out who the establishment is, and we don't. A lot of people just really it's wordplay, right? What does that mean? But at the end of the day, when it comes down to establishment, or whether you're talking about progressive, all these labels don't mean a thing, because the goal really is I will work with a DSA, an establishment person, and I might like them in the same damn race. I don't even know. Or they might be. I can go with AOC and a Pat Ryan. Give me AOC and Pat Ryan, and we can do a whole lot of things. They are not night and day when it comes to who they are, but I like them both, and that's okay. That's okay.
Exactly. Oh, and one other race that I didn't talk about, and I'm going to wrap us up here, is the governor's race, which I'm very excited about. Marsha Blackburn won, the Republican won, but Jerry Green won for the Democrats, and she is a very, very strong candidate. So I'm going to be rooting for her and doing, getting out on the ground. And in our next conversation, we also have a surprise independent in the mix. And Nikki Barnes has been, she knows him. She's been telling me about him. He doesn't seem like a bad guy. So it could be a very interesting race for governor here for us to watch and to talk about. But I want to.
We're in a weird time, right? Like we're in a
Yeah.
weird political time, but this is all setting us up for 2028. So this is what I say when people were being negative, like as we're wrapping this up, when people were being negative, saying like, El Said can't win. You don't know what's gonna happen. But at this point in 2024, I was like, okay, VP's gonna win. VP's gonna win. Up until the night of the election, I was sure that woman was gonna win because I was looking at polls and I was trying to make sense of it. I knew that there was obviously it could go either way. But everything told me that she was going to win, and then she didn't win. So it could go the opposite way too, right? In 2016, we also thought that Hillary was going to win too. So you never say never. Stop being pessimistic. Stop being negative. If you don't want to vote for him, if you don't want to support him, be my guest. I don't care. I could care less. I know who is supporting him. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is supporting him. That's all I know.
Exactly. And we have to win in order to have these further fights about, healthcare and other things in this country. Because if we don't, these conversations, they'll be pointless. So let's keep our eyes on the prize, guys. I want to thank everyone. We got folks joining us on Spoutable, on YouTube, on X, and on Substack. And I appreciate you guys joining us and supporting us, and love all the comments and the hearts that you've given us. And we're going to cut it short a little bit today because both Tiff and I have appointments.
We got real lives.
Yes, we have appointments we have to get to, but don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all the other socials that we're on. So until we gather again in the next 2 weeks, you guys take care, stay informed, stay engaged. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.